Dirt Trax is sponsored by Can-Am. The ride says it all. Polaris, the hardest working, smoothest riding off-road vehicles. Honda's Big Red, Foreman, and Rancher, built to work. Yamaha Motor Canada, what kind of Yamaha are you? And by Arctic Cat, share our passion.
It seems like each season on Dirt Trax, we try to install, maintain, or outline the general abilities that you can expect from a quality track kit like the Camoplast T4S. But this season, I've got something just a little bit different in mind. Our 2012 Can-Am Outlander 1000 G2 is a very capable ATV in stock form. It's a totally redesigned ATV, and in my opinion, is one of the best sport utilities out there. However, when you put it to the test on the toughest trails out in our neck of the woods, there are many areas where I know I could benefit huge from a set of tracks and make light work of otherwise tough terrain situations. We've gone ahead and installed 3 of the 4 T4S 4 Seasons tracks on our Outlander 1000 G2, and the 4th is super easy to put on when we follow the instructions the Camoplast has given us. Installing a track kit does take some time and will require strict attention to the manufacturer's directions to ensure a proper fit and the best performance possible from the kit. Camoplast design is very advanced and will give my Outlander the best track performance possible when I follow the manufacturer's specs on torque, track tension, and maintenance. If you're going to make the significant investment into a track kit, you want to make sure you've done your homework, researched all the different designs, and are making an informed decision. So before I go any further with the testing, I want to tell you about a couple of the key benefits that Camoplast offers. They're things that I consider to be must-haves. Firstly, Camoplast is a track company at heart, and they know how to build a technically advanced track. With rounded edges on the front and aggressive but manageable lugs, the front tracks on the T4S kit make steering effort reduced without losing grip. The track is designed for 4-season use and will happily tackle mud, sharp rocks, or hard-packed surfaces without any issues or worry of delamination or derailment. The frame of the 4S is designed to withstand abuse and shed ice, mud, and debris from within the tracks, and thanks to multiple idler wheels with elastomer outer bands, they will continue to work year after hard-working year. Because the T4S kit is a true 4-season design, it doesn't matter if you put it on early, leave it on late, or just let it stay there all year long. They're designed for the abuse of 4 seasons use. Whether you drive a big, work-focused side-by-side demanding the best hauling performance in the harshest conditions, or just want to play in some snow, the 4S tracks are also available for your side-by-side and truly deliver outstanding performance in snow, rocks, and mud, increasing your workability when traversing the most brutal terrain. With all that being said, you may wonder what I'm going to be doing with the Outlander. Well, there's many places that I find tracks to be hugely beneficial. So what better way to show you than a head-to-head competition with this Renegade 1000 equipped with wheels. Utilizing these 2 ATVs that are very similar in design, we're going to shoot out our tracked Outlander G2 against a stock 2012 Can-Am Renegade 1000 G2. The same power plant is under the seat of these 2 vehicles, with the main difference being the suspension and bodywork. But at the heart, these vehicles share a very similar overall design. Point A to point B on a smooth, fast section of trail is gonna net an obvious winner. And Camoplast doesn't claim blazing speeds from their track kits. It's in the truly tough and technical trail conditions that these track kits show their abilities. Utilizing a rider who knows his stuff and will ride hard is essential to having a fair race. So who better than our logistics manager, Jeff, who not only works hard, but rides even harder. With Jeff on the Renegade, I'll have to push this track-kitted ATV harder than I ever have in the past. But one thing I know to be true is slow and steady can win the race. The trail I chose is called the Miserable Lake Trail. And yes, it's truly miserable, featuring deep mud, technical rock sections, and steep hills. Even the most advanced rider is going to feel challenged here. And while momentum between the obstacles will come in handy, a vehicle equipped with tires, well, might just become tired. We rode together for the first section. I anticipated Jeff would pull out a huge lead, but I didn't worry too much because we both knew what lies ahead. My Camoplast Trax kept up a steady and solid trail speed and led me to the first of many technical trail sections. The first of the nasty sections that we encountered is one that truly sucks you in. It's been run and rutted out by big wheelers so much that they've dug huge trenches, and it makes getting stuck with a stock ATV super easy, not to mention getting caught up on all the debris at the bottom of those ruts. Seeing as most ATVs have a nearly identical stance, the ruts are really hard to counteract with tires. You can straddle them or attempt to use momentum, but many riders before us have done the same thing, and these holes are truly deep. On the flip side, the 4S Trax don't really care about traditional wheel spacing and have a significantly increased width along with much greater ground clearance and way better traction. Track hit 1, tires 0. A track-kitted ATV naturally increases your ground clearance and delivers a way better ability to traverse technical terrain, both in mud and through technical rocky sections, where with a wheeled ATV, you may have to impact a rock, potentially damaging your rim or your tire to save from impacting your frame. The difference in ground clearance is significant between the two vehicles. Jeff needs to be careful of being high-centered, clipping rocks on the frame and catching roots or stumps, while I have the ability to breeze right over just about anything the trail delivers. The second half of the Miserable Lake Trail features some pretty steep hills. They've got off cambers on them, and around this time of the year can become pretty slick. The truth is, the hardest part of this climb is not the climb itself. The approach to this hill is very different from most, where a water crossing scattered with hidden rocks must first be traversed. The water was cold and dark, not allowing for a view of what might be lurking below. The Trax didn't skip a beat, clawing at the rocks and churning the water inside out. The transition out of the water was absolutely seamless, and the Trax never for a second lost grip on the granite surface. The Trax's ability to bridge gaps is incredible, thanks to the fact that a track is so much longer than that of a tire. The articulation also helps for the track to be able to claw up and over just about anything, no matter whether it's wet or dry. After running this section with the track kit, I knew Jeff would have his hands full. The submerged rocks make transitioning very difficult, and if you don't make the correct approach, can even cause the vehicle to get high-centered on the sharp granite. Once Jeff made it out of the water, I knew he'd be back on my tail. While I am able to make up great time in the hardest areas of this ride, Jeff has speed. And even though he might get axled in the mud or slide backwards down a hill, the truth is he can carry far greater speed in between the technical areas of this ride. While it sounds like I'm a little concerned, I know what lies ahead. The final rock climb on this trail is brutal. Not only is it a slick, steep rock wall, it requires both turning uphill and climbing over rutted out rock outcroppings. With a wheeled ATV, you need to hit the obstacles with proper momentum. However, the track kit had no issues clawing up the hill and never made me feel nervous of going over backwards. Climbing up this vertical wall gave me more confidence than a Dixie chick at a hoedown. This is one area I particularly notice a vast improvement with the Trax. Steep inclines are where a lot of riders become very nervous and can second guess themselves, the ATV, or both. Jeff and I are experienced riders, and most inclines don't bother us too much. However, when you mix in rutted out rock shelves, it can make even experienced riders a little bit nervous. The tires on the Renegade couldn't quite find the initial grip on the slick rock, causing Jeff to have to back down and try a different line. The reduced footprint of the wheels caused the bike to become uneasy, proving just how much of an advantage the Trax gave me on this technical climb. Finishing this ride off at the top of the gnarliest climb on the miserable lake trail just solidified in my mind the tangible benefits that a track kit delivers outside of the obvious snow traveling abilities. I truly feel that Jeff and I have a much greater understanding and appreciation for what a track kit can do in gnarly situations. While Jeff had far greater speed on the flat, smooth areas, the Camoplast T4S Trax gave me the clear advantage in the most technical areas and never for a second got stuck or slowed down. Most ATVers will associate a track kit with snow traveling, but I'm here to tell you that a Camoplast T4S kit is one amazing four-season piece of equipment, and it's been able to handle anything that I've thrown at it.
Arctic Cat is going places in the ATV and side-by-side business. In the truest sense, they get it. They know how to compete, and they know who the competition is. And they're executing this equation by building top-performing ATV and side-by-side vehicles. Before we look at this week's test ride candidate, the stout 700i LE 4x4, let's talk a little bit about who Arctic Cat really is. The company is located in northern Minnesota, just 60 miles down the highway from the home of Polaris Industries, the worldwide leader in ATVs and side-by-sides, and a fierce competitor in the snowmobile business with Arctic Cat. The two companies have much in common, not the least of which is a common lineage dating back over 50 years. You see, both Arctic Cat and Polaris were founded by the same guy, Edgar Hattine, revered by both companies as the father of the modern snowmobile. So, does common ancestry give Arctic Cat any insights into the incredible success Polaris has been enjoying in the off-road industry? Well, no matter how connected we might think they are, it's impossible to answer that question. However, I will present evidence in the form of this 700cc limited edition Arctic Cat 4x4 ATV that Arctic Cat knows exactly how to compete with their neighbor up the highway. The full-size Arctic Cat chassis used in the 700i and most of the company's upscale 4x4s display a number of important features which make them desirable in this near top-of-the-market segment. Namely, a long travel independent rear suspension, long travel front suspension, large sturdy racks, exceptional ground clearance, a high-low subtranny, and a well-vented, waterproof automatic CVT. The standard amenities on the 700i 4x4 are exactly the things that shoppers in this segment demand. There's one more feature the 700i aces. It's a Hemihead 700cc EFI single overhead cam 4-valve single. This engine produces copious torque at all RPM levels and quite frankly behaves more like a flywheel than an internal combustion engine. Arctic Cat ATVs are legendary for snowmobility, and this 700i 4x4 is no exception. A product of a copious 11 inches of ground clearance and a very slippery skid-plated belly make this Arctic Cat great in serious snow conditions. We've come to appreciate how this chassis can thread gnarly stream beds and rock-infested trails. The amount of ground clearance and the lack of edges on the ATV's underside allows for efficient navigation in the worst conditions. We want to make special mention of a game-changing feature on the new 700i LE. It's a rear suspension-mounted anti-sway bar. We've complained for a long time about the overly stiff rear suspension on this chassis. With this new anti-sway bar in play, the rear suspension can be set much softer, but it still produces great anti-roll resistance. Nice. When you ante up for a 700i LE, you get some nice bling and some functional, if not entirely necessary accessories thrown in. Let's make this perfectly clear. Any Arctic Cat full-size 4x4 chassis benefits greatly from Arctic Cat's proportional, speed-sensitive electronic power steering. It completely erases handlebar whip and settles the front end in tricky, tight trails. There's a full-on, worn 3,000-pound winch that's nicely positioned and protected. Exceptionally sweet aluminum wheels with compliant 2-ply skins make for form and functional enhancements. Finally, the LE can be ordered with either a durable camo finish or very appealing painted plastic. A quick check of the Trax valuometer indicates that the LE package is way too good of a deal. In fact, we would argue there's no good reason not to go for the LE package. Just the addition of electronic power steering and a winch means you get all the rest of the stuff for free. Arctic Cat is bringing to market a ton of very innovative and full-featured ATVs in model year 2012. Their lineup meets the market's demands head-on with all the right features, improved and refined fit, finish, and performance, as well as undeniably good value at every key industry price point. To say Arctic Cat is a competitive ATV brand would be an understatement of Olympic proportions. I started this test ride out asking if Arctic Cat's physical proximity to Polaris has had anything to do with their successful packaging and positioning of ATV models. It may not have anything to do with them being literal Minnesota neighbors, but it does have a lot to do with Arctic Cat just being doggone smart in the ATV business.
I know I look like a giant standing next to this tiny little bike, but before you laugh at me, at least give me an opportunity to explain why it's me testing Yamaha's Grizzly 300 today. I know I seem like the least likely candidate of our whole crew to do this test, because of the three of us, I'm the biggest, both in height and weight. So why put the big guy on the little bike? It's like a fat guy in a little coat. It just doesn't work. The reason you're hearing from me today is because I have the most experience conveying information from other riders to you, our viewers. We've had a number of appropriately sized pilots give the 300 Grizz a whirl. Now it's time for me to put all that information together. The 300 is probably the least grizzliest Grizzly in the Yamaha lineup. It doesn't look mean nor intimidating. Doesn't wake up with a gnarly growl when you hit the start button, and, simply put, it ain't big. I have a young daughter, so this next analogy is at least going to make a lot of sense to me. If you think about it, the Grizzly 550 and the Grizzly 700 are like Mama and Papa Bear. The Grizzly 300 is like Baby Bear. Basically what I'm saying is the little Grizz fits perfectly at the smaller end of Yamaha's lineup. Our skepticism is largely based on the fact that the Grizzly 300's liquid-cooled, single-cylinder 287cc single overhead cam mill doesn't say Yamaha on it anywhere, which is very, very interesting. What this motor does have is more than adequate horsepower and torque to get a smaller or lighter rider anywhere they'd ever want to go. Every one of our test riders loved it, and I have to admit, even after my ridiculous test ride, even I was impressed. One thing it doesn't have is EFI, so you need to remember the choke when starting cold. But once you get the process down, this little thumper springs to life and is ready to go. Suspension-wise, the 300 has dual A-arms up front and a swing arm with solid axle in the rear that both provide 7.5 inches of travel. Now, generally speaking, we don't like solid axle ATVs, but they are the norm in this class, and to be perfectly honest, this one works as good as any other we've tested. Now, the 300 isn't very big to start with, so even smaller bumps appear much larger than they normally would. Obstacles look taller too, but because of its size, the Grizz can usually be maneuvered around anything it can't go over on the trail. Again, in this class, 4x4 is not the norm, so we're not surprised that it's missing from this vehicle. On top of that, the little Grizzly isn't designed to go places you can only get to with four-wheel drive. With that said, all of our test riders were very impressed with the places it could take them. Ergonomically speaking, I can only comment on what I've heard from our appropriately sized test riders in terms of comfort and layout. To say I feel cramped on this thing would be a huge understatement. According to our riders, for a driver of smaller proportions, the Grizzly is not too big and it's not too small. According to them, and to quote Goldilocks, it's just right. Switchgear is all accessible with an average size thumb. The throttle's not overly heavy, and the easy-to-shift high-low neutral reverse gearbox is mated to a CVT transmission, so you'll never have to think about shifting gears. What good is an ATV without racks? Sometimes as ATVs get smaller, the racks start to disappear, as if to say smaller riders don't have anything they need to take with them, but we all know that's just crazy talk. Steel front and rear racks can hold up to 145 pounds combined, which is very likely more than the average Grizzly 300 rider will weigh, so that's pretty impressive. A decent set of 22-inch tires are wrapped around steel wheels, hydraulic brakes can be found front and rear, and nice wide fenders and full floorboards keep your feet in and the mud out. We only have two things we think could improve the Grizzly 300. First, EFI would make starting simpler and overall operation smoother. It might cost a bit more, but we feel it would be worth it. Secondly, we'd like to see Yamaha spec a porridge bowl holder on this thing, because when it comes time for Goldilocks to escape the bear's cabin, we're pretty sure a Grizzly 300 is going to be her ride of choice.
Dirt Trax Television has been sponsored by Yamaha. Nobody's more in tune with motorsports than Yamaha. Polaris, the hardest working, smoothest riding off-road vehicles. Camoplast high-performance Trax. Go where wheels simply can't. Can-Am, the ride says it all. And by Honda's Big Red, Foreman, and Rancher. Built to work.